Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Kelly Green Hour. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald, and today we're jumping right into it. The 53-man roster, they have to be the NFL teams have to go from 90 to 53 by 4 p.m. Tuesday afternoon, and then after that, they set their 16-man practice squads. So by 4 p.m. Tuesday afternoon, over 1,150 players will be released. All in total, it's going to be 600 and something because, again, 16-man practice squads times 32. and that's how many. And I actually like that, and I don't know about you, Connor, and we'll definitely dive into this. I like that they increased the practice squad. And I like the rule where you can bring somebody up. Obviously, it's a number of times what they did with Covey last year, the first 3 or so games. They brought him up and then they signed him to the roster. But I like that. And then now they got the third quarterback rule. A lot of things because of what happened in the NFC Championship game. But before we get into that, how you doing, Connor?
I'm doing good. First of all, we'll address this. Cuts are Tuesday. I'm sorry, I can't repeat your name. I don't know what that is, but cuts are Tuesday. But that doesn't mean that there won't be cuts before then. You know, some teams may make the very obvious ones before then, but some of the tougher ones may come down to Tuesday. But yeah, you'll definitely start. Usually by Sunday, we start to see some cuts really start rolling out pretty quickly. So, and yeah, he said go Birds, so definitely go Birds.
According to to Mr. Crockpot Media, the Eagles preseason is out like James Harden and the Sixers. That you don't want me on your Sixers pod. That's all I'm gonna say.
For once, it seems like he's siding with you though. Like he's kind of supporting your hatred of James Harden. And
no, I don't have a hatred. I have a hatred of whoever's on the Sixers because I have a hatred of the Sixers. James Harden, once he leaves, he'll be fine. I don't really care what he does. But being in that dumb uniform, I hate him. So, sorry, you can continue.
But yeah, no, I'm just excited that, we are 10 days, 14 days, right? 14 days away? 14, what are we?
14 No, we are...
14 from today. They're yesterday.
Well,
it's a Thursday night game.
16 from the Eagles first.
16 from the Eagles, but I'm talking like the legit football like that. I don't care that it's the Lions and the Chiefs or whatever, but I'm just excited for legitimate football. That game last night was kind of a joke, except the fact that the Indianapolis Colts played their starters as long as they did, and I was actually really impressed.
And speaking of that, there were people that were praising Anthony Richardson. He looked like trash against our second and third string, by the way.
And actually, second and third is pretty fair. There was a lot of fourth string guys who aren't even going to make practice squads out there playing. Mm-hmm. Like Eli Ricks, if he was ever in doubt to make the roster, which he shouldn't have been, he shored it up last night. He took Pittman and Pierce to school on some plays. Like he legitimately stood up against true wide receiver ones. Now, granted, I'm one of those guys who felt Richardson is a project. He's not going to be a guy who's going to pop off in year one. I think it's going to take more than year two. You're really going to have to make a decision in year 3 and year 4 on Anthony Richardson. I was one of those guys because I talk a lot of fantasy football as well. Accuracy matters. Mm-hmm. And Anthony Richardson is a horribly inaccurate quarterback. He's got a great arm. He's got great athleticism. He can run, but he has horrible accuracy. He had terrible accuracy, and he was only a 1-year starter at Florida. So to me, I wasn't prepared to do Richardson to me isn't as bad as, okay, the Trey Lance pick looks super bad because they traded 3 first-rounders for it. But I almost feel Lance and Richardson are comparable, except Richardson played at the right level of college to draft him in the top 5. Trey Lance beat out the lower level. I can't hear you. I don't know if it's just me. Oh no, LJ. We've lost LJ's sound as I was bashing Anthony Richardson. So LJ is about to come back in. But Mr. Crockpot did say Anthony Richardson is garbage. He's so overrated. Definitely agree with you there, Mr. Crockpot. like I said, accuracy matters. You have to be able to throw that football. And if you're not able to throw the football and throw with some sort of accuracy, you're going to have a hard time, and people and teams are going to have a hard time, buying into you being a franchise quarterback. And it's an unfortunate reality for Anthony Richardson and especially for the Indianapolis Colts. Mr. Crockpot, fun fact, I had Tanner McKee ranked 11 spots lower than Anthony Richardson in my top 53 prospects of the 2023 draft. That is definitely a fun fact, Mr. Crockpot. And interestingly enough, Tanner McKee looked better in this preseason than Anthony Richardson looked all preseason. And Anthony Richardson is set to be a starter. Well, Tanner McKee is set to be a third stringer behind Marcus Mariota. So that's going to be definitely very interesting to watch. But I don't want to bash Anthony Richardson the whole time. So hopefully we get LJ back here very quickly with some sound. But we will be diving into Rick's better. So Rick's better make it, and Devin Allen over Covey. I'm interested to see what direction they go. I think Devin Allen's going to end up being back on the practice squad. I think he's a guy who I still think he needs to work on his hands and his ability to make the catch and then to be able to return the ball. It seemed to have been a thing this year and a thing last year. Oh, let's see. We got LJ back with sound.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Okay. So I'm addressing this comment. Rick's better make it. Rick's is definitely making it, but Devin Allen over Covey. And I think that you're going to agree with that solely because you don't like Britton Covey.
Well, I'm not going to agree. I don't think either should make it, but I'm not going to agree with it because Devin Allen isn't a punt returner. Devin Allen's a kickoff returner, and a kickoff returner and a punt returner are two totally different things. And Devin Allen didn't do punt return or kick return at all in college at Oregon. So, I mean, they're probably they have the comfortability with Britton Covey, and they have the experience with him. He's at least reliable when it comes to catching the ball.
That was, but the thing with Devin Allen also that I saw, like even last night, like he can't make that initial, like you can't constantly. That was a kickoff. If that's a punt, he's not getting a second chance often to make that play. Britton Covey, the thing with Britton Covey that I like, the man can take shots. He can get nailed and hold on to that football. And as much as we hate that, his average yards per return is like 3 or 4 yards, like at least he can hold on to the football.
So there was
Devin Allen can't yet.
There was a stat that Ruben Frank put out that after week 7, I want to say, or week 11, it was one of the 2 weeks. Britton Covey was 11th, or no, was 7th in the league in punt return average. And then in the Super Bowl, I think he had a good one. So, like, again, he has the experience, and obviously this coaching staff, unlike previous coaching staffs, especially Chip Kelly, doesn't prioritize special team. Like usually the back half of the roster, the bottom end of the roster, you want to put players that are going to be able to excel on special teams. The Chris Maragoses, the Camus Grugier-Hills of the world. But this coaching staff, and I think I mentioned it the last time we were on.
We did talk last time, yep.
They prioritize developmental players. So if they can keep an extra offensive lineman, if they can keep an extra cornerback, they can keep an extra defensive lineman that may not see a lot of playing time this year, but they can keep on the roster and that they can just develop that could turn into somebody in a year or two, they'll do that and they'll just find a way. So like the last 2 years, we've complained so much about Michael Clay. And maybe it hasn't been Michael Clay. Maybe it's just they don't have good enough players that are going out there. Like Doug used to put starters out there. I don't know if Nick Sirianni necessarily wants to do that, but that's what it might come down to is putting starters out there. Malcolm Jenkins played special teams all the time. Marcus Epps played special teams all the time. Like so that's what I think it's going to come down to.
It's the health and injury concern, and I get it. You don't want to put these guys at, especially like punter, kick return. You don't want a key starter doing that. And I know they had Devontae Smith out there sometimes just because they wanted something to come of their returns, but you can't be risking those types of players all the time. Now, if you're going out there and just trying to make a tackle, yeah, going like your developmental Kevon Wallaces and stuff of the world who haven't proven anything, missed tackles, aren't that great, and you're just trying to push them into a special teams role to save the fact that they are on your roster. That just doesn't make sense to me. Mr.
I mean,
Crockpot,
they were a little bit better when Christian Ellis got brought up. Maybe Sidney Brown, like if he's not a starter, which I don't think he'll be a starter at least the first half of the season, maybe he'll be better. If they were to keep Ben Van Serman, the rookie undrafted linebacker from Michigan State, who had I think like 17 he had like 17 tackles yesterday or something like that.
Yep, 11 solo tackles.
Yeah. So like he could potentially make it. So yeah, there's a lot of players that could help the special teams.
And Mr. Crockpot, we'll just start doing that 53-man roster. He says, I think Keely Ringo is a lock. And then he says, Ricks versus Goodrich fight. Do both make it? Who makes that final CB spot? He also asked, what the heck are the Eagles going to do with punter? I mean, as much as we hate to see it, it's going to be Aaron Sipos. And
right
it's
now,
only...
It wouldn't shock me if come Tuesday, maybe somebody gets released. I don't know. But who knows?
We'll talk on this point too. Eagles need to find a way to get Ricks and Van Sumer into the practice squad. I guess we got to dive into it, but I don't think you can let Ricks go to the waiver wire because he ain't coming back. I don't think he makes it through. Van Sumeren, I think, has a better chance of making it through and coming back out the other side to our practice squad if I were to put odds. But Ricks, I really don't think so, especially after that showing last night against some of the ones. Like, those were legit ones on a football team. Yes, it's Anthony Richardson who's got no accuracy, and like it's a brand new offense and stuff, and that's probably why Steichen wanted to get those guys out there. But the point is, they're true ones. That's legitimate ones that are going to be playing on a football field this season, and he had a really good performance against them. And that was his audition, that if you want to put him on the waiver wire, that's the tape that they're going to look at. And some team will say, he can fit as my 6th or 7th corner if the Eagles can't make it work.
Oh, yeah, and then spoiler, I have Ricks on my roster. On my initial 53, he should be on it.
I was going to say, if my comments didn't prove it to you, Mr. Crockpot, that I have him on my 53 as well. So let's dive in. Let's start on their offense.
Before we do all that, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Greenhour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. That's TEN. Follow me on Twitter at LJ Harrell54. And follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports or EOP Sports. All right, so let's jump into it. The offense, I think quarterback is pretty self-explanatory. Jalen Hurts the starter, Marcus Mariota, and Tanner McKee. Mariota will be the backup initially, and who knows? Hopefully we don't need to worry about the backup. Hopefully Jalen, but the last couple of Decembers he has gotten hurt, so you never know. But I think I have 3 at quarterback: Hurts, Mariota, and McKee.
I agree. I have the same. And I mean, if McKee didn't have as good of a preseason as he had, I think we could have went with 2 and he would have made it to the practice squad. But that preseason was too good that especially with the 3 quarterback rule now, he was going to be eaten up.
Yeah, and Ian Book is gone. Thank God.
Thank goodness.
Notre Dame quarterbacks are terrible. Almost not as bad as, or maybe on par with as bad as Ohio State quarterbacks are. All right, so let's go to the running back. I have 4. I have DeAndre Swift, who I think, again, Swift has the best ability of all the running backs that I think the Eagles are going to keep. And I think he is going to be the primary ball carrier. But again, it is running back by committee. They're not going to trade for Jonathan Taylor. They're not going to, again, they didn't trade up for Bijan Robinson. They're never at least under Howie Roseman, they're never going to pay a running back big money. So I'm going Swift, Gainwell, Penny, and unfortunately I have Boston Scott, but it wouldn't shock me if they maybe make a move for somebody that gets cut and Scott doesn't make the team.
Yeah, I have it the same way. Even though I posted on Twitter last night saying that Trey Sermon should be on the 53 over Scott, and some guy said, you don't know football. I know football, and I get that Boston Scott is going to be there. I don't like it. I think you can find a better situational role for Trey Sermon than Boston Scott. And then, of course, everyone comes out and says, but he gives you 2 games a season that is better than half the running backs in the NFL, and he gives you 2 wins a year. Whatever. Okay, it is what it is. At the end of the day, the way that they played the preseason, Scott's making it. He's, like I said on the last episode, $1 million is $1 million to save, and he's the highest paid running back on our roster right now. So I agree with you. If some running back gets cut that we like, maybe we go for it. I'm not completely ruling out Jonathan Taylor, but I am saying we're not going to pay the contract. The contract
Jonathan Taylor, I think, is going to end up in Miami. I know the Colts.
And that's if they deal him. Like, at the end of the day, you got to think, like, you have to be willing to, like, he's not going to go there without, like, it's probably going to be a sign and trade or a trade and sign. Like, I think
it depends. If he really wants out of Indianapolis, maybe. And again, if I'm a team that's trading for him, I'm going to want, well, and they can also, this is the last year of his rookie deal, right? So they, in theory, could franchise tag him next year. So, like, I
think you want to get out before you risk that franchise tag garbage, because look at the Josh Jacobs situation and stuff. You just end up in a situation where you lose all leverage and you just have to sit to prove your point or try and sit to get a better contract. And I just don't see, like, I get it. Okay, everyone's sitting there. Like, if it was like a 3 and a 5 with the 3 being potentially a chance to become a 2, okay, I might be okay with that, but like, I can't give up a 2. No chance I can give up a 1, which if the rumors are clearly out there that no one's given up a 1, especially with the contract. And that's the thing that the Colts have to understand. If someone's got to give the contract you don't want to give, you ain't getting a first-round pick from him, despite that he is a first-round talent. He's a great talent. He's a game changer for an offense, but nobody's going to do that when they know that they also have to pay him $12 to $14 million a year after that.
Yeah, and as Mr. Crockpot says, the Taylor to the Eagles rumors is complete nonsense. Howie is going to make a call on everybody. Like, he wouldn't be doing his due diligence if he didn't. But yeah, it definitely is nonsense. Again, they're never gonna have a bell cow running back in under Howie. He's kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to the running back position. You know, they're not going to go out there and put assets into that position when it's a passing league right now. All right, so let's move to...
I agree. And like, one more thing, like you said, Howie always is going to make the call, and you have to understand that. So when people sit there and say, I have trusted, I have trusted sources that say Howie made a call. Howie makes a call on every rumored player on the block or every upset play. If you don't think for 2 seconds that although Budda Baker restructured and stayed in Arizona, Howie didn't make at least one phone call for trying to get Budda Baker, you'd be wild. So that's why when people say, I have a trusted source who say they're in contact, Howie is in contact with any rumored not happy player.
Yeah, exactly. And again, he wouldn't be doing his due diligence if he didn't. Let's move to wide receiver. Who do you got the Eagles keeping at wide receiver?
This was a tough one. So it's only a tough one because I had Tyree Cleveland making it. If he did not end up having his season pretty much put down the drain with that really sickening hit, I had him there, and now I hate it because I have a really small wide receiving room after AJ Brown, and I don't like it. I have AJ Brown, I have Devontae Smith, I have Quez Watkins, I got Britton Covey, and I got Zacchaeus. I wanted a bigger guy, but like, I don't think anyone's taken Deon Cain. So despite his or Freddie Swain, like, I don't think anyone's taken these guys. So they'll make it through waivers. They'll land on the practice squad. You can do that protection rule. And if Zacchaeus or Covey or something isn't working out and it's way too small, you don't have any size, then, maybe you then pivot to bringing Deon Cain up those 3 times and then signing him and dumping somebody else. I don't know, but I hate it because I got Smith. Okay. Smith is small in stature, but he's a beast. Brown's the biggest guy, and then everybody else is what, like 5'10", 180. Like, I hate that feeling. I liked it a lot more when we had Zach Pascal. That's why I want Tyree Cleveland.
Greg Ward will be on the practice squad. He's not going anywhere. I actually have the same 5 receivers: AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Olamide Zacchaeus, Quez Watkins, and Britton Covey, who, again, I'm not a fan of. Covey will be the punt return. I think, though, again, like I said last year when we did this, you can cut Covey and just bring him back to the practice squad, bring him up, and then figure out what to do from there. Nobody's clamoring to get
Then
Britton
who?
Covey.
But like, who are you taking then? Is it just to have 4 wide receivers and then try it just so you can protect somebody else on your 53 and then figure it out from there? Like, I don't see like a
you
path
got to
to
see what receivers are cut across the league too. Like you said, you want a bigger one, maybe a bigger one gets cut and they bring him on.
N'Keal Harry got cut.
Yeah, but they also brought him in for a workout, and that didn't work out so well. But yeah, so like again, Britton Covey is a give or take. Who knows what's going to happen there? But again, the Eagles were lucky last year that AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, and Zach Pascal didn't really get hurt last year because they didn't have depth at wide receiver. And again, my big fear this year is, are they going to be as lucky this year as they were last year in the health department? And I don't think they will. So they're going to definitely have to find a way to get some depth at receiver, whether it is on the practice squad or adding a receiver or two to the active roster. Tight ends.
Mr. Crockpot says, is Quez going to be ready for week 1? If not, that just makes you feel even worse about the wide receiver position. So I really hope he's going to be ready for week 1. But I think like some of the moves that happen over the weekend will probably speak to if Quez will be ready. But I mean, if you put him on the IR, he's automatically, 4 weeks that he's going to miss? So automatically he's going to miss 4 weeks, and you got to figure something out. And I don't like the looks of a Brown, Smith, Covey, and Zacchaeus wide receiving room. Or even if you want to add Deon Cain or Freddie Swain into that picture, I don't like the look of it. We're lucky with Brown and Smith, like you said, but can their health hold is a big question. Tight end, I got Goddard, Stoll, and Jackson. And the only reason, I don't know, I didn't love Grant Calcaterra. I don't really see, I see him on so many 53-man rosters. I don't understand it. I mean, he's a good pass catcher, but I think I like the upside more with Jackson, the size, speed profile that's there. And they kind of used him in a variety of different, they used him in line, they used him in the slot, they used him out wide. Maybe there's a chance he's a wide receiver tight end hybrid, like Zach Pascal type role. And maybe that's the saving grace of the wide receiver conundrum that I have before me. But I just have 3 tight ends, and those are the 3 I have. They just like Tyree Jackson way too much. And he did well enough yesterday and well enough prior to that I think he warrants keeping him and taking a look.
I got Goddard, Stoll, and Calcaterra, and Jackson will be on the practice squad. I don't think anybody's clamoring for Jackson when he gets cut. So
I don't think anyone would be for Calcaterra either.
I know, but I think they drafted Calcaterra last year. They're not going to give up on him after a year. And again, Jackson, if they need a 4th tight end, bring him up, whatnot. So he'll be on the practice squad. But yeah, Goddard is going to be a top 3 tight end somehow. Would love to see Howie somehow get Zach Ertz from the Cardinals. That would be interesting if that were to happen. The Cardinals are obviously tanking, and he's back from his ACL, right? So it's potential. Maybe if we can get Budda Baker and Ertz in a trade.
The thing with Budda Baker is just a restructure. Just when someone restructures, that pretty much tells you that they're not really going anywhere right away. I would love to see Ertz back. How much it would cost? Man, they sold Simmons for a 7th, which I wish Howie was in on. I couldn't believe the price. Second, Howie probably was 1 minute. Where did this come from? If I knew this availability was here, I would have given a 6th to get ahead of
unless Gannon doesn't want to do business with the Eagles.
Well, which is after everything that went down with the draft and having to give up picks because he gave up on the Eagles. Well, yeah, I guess you can kind of see that.
All right, so let's move to the offensive line. I'm going here. The starters: Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelce, Cam Jurgens, and Lane Johnson. And my backups: Tyler Steen, Jack Driscoll, Josh Andrews, Sua Opeta, and Fred Johnson. I didn't have Fred Johnson at first, but then when they signed him to a 2-year deal, he kind of guaranteed that he's going to be on the roster. So I went 10 offensive linemen to give me 25 on the offense.
I went very similarly. I went Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Fred Johnson. I had Fred Johnson as a surprise guy that was going to make it. And then when they released him and signed him, I was like, okay, well, no surprise there now. Driscoll, Kelce, Opeta, Dickerson, Jurgens, and Steen. I just think there's a lot of guys like Good Jones and stuff. Like we're probably going to end up with 4 or 5 offensive linemen on the practice squad. There's a fair amount of guys who did a really good job, but I don't think good enough that they warrant a team swooping in on waivers and grabbing them. But who knows? At the end of the day, they know what Stoutland produces and churns out in Philly. So maybe that's enough to grab a few of these guys. But I do think we end up bringing back at least 5 offensive linemen for practice squad.
I originally had Dennis Kelly, but he doesn't really.
So did I, but he didn't really. I bounced back and forth on him. I was like, he's probably would make the best backup right tackle, but I was just like, it wasn't that great of a preseason. We got him out of nowhere. Like I'm certain he can clear waivers if we need to do something there.
Yep. All right, so I had 25 total on the offense. I think you had 25 as well.
I had 25 as well.
All right. So, and I think our special teams is the same. Jake Elliott, Aaron Sipos for now, but I think he might not make it to week 1, and Rick Lovato.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at this point, you have to revisit. And actually, funny enough, because we talked about Matt Ariza yesterday, and I was looking at, I saw somebody posting something on Instagram, and apparently he is a garbage holder. So he said you would have to make sure that McKee or Mariota or somebody's able to hold the football really well, because obviously we know Aaron Sipos holds the ball for if I'm not mistaken, holds the ball for the field goals. So you need somebody, like, as odd as it sounds, like if you have a guy who cannot handle a football just to catch it, put it down right.
In the past, backup quarterbacks used to do it. Like I remember Coy Detmer used to do it for David Akers.
If Tanner McKee can catch a football, put it down with the laces the right direction for Jake Elliott, I'm all for letting Tanner McKee make
but
the
that
game
means
day
they have
roster.
They have to dress.
I know.
Quarterbacks.
But if it means you get a punter who can punt the football any degree better than Aaron Sipos, I think I'm game for that.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, I mean, again, maybe that's the reason why he hasn't been signed or anything, and why he's not on the roster after he.
I didn't know he was such a bad holder. So I mean, I'm sure you got to be able to find somebody in all these developmental players who knows how to catch a ball and turn it the right way for the laces so that Elliott can kick the.
Probably can do that. Like if he's going to be the punt returner, give him something else to do. Who knows? All right. So let's move to the defensive side of the football. I don't know. I went D-line, linebacker, cornerback, safety. I don't know if you did D tackle, DN.
I did DN, DT, and LB, but like 2 or 3 of my LBs are edges as well. So
yeah. All right. So I'm just going to go with my defensive line: Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Josh Sweat, Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, Derek Barnett, unfortunately, and Moro Ajomo. So I have 8 on the defensive line. And again, that doesn't include the edges. I have them as part of the linebackers.
Yeah, I'll go edge and DT first. And I got Graham, Sweat, Barnett, Cox, Carter, Davis, Williams, and Ojomo as well. So very similar from edge and tackle perspective.
And again, the Eagles are always going to have more than they need at the defensive line and even offensive line positions. That's where they build. They build inside out. So that doesn't shock me. Derek Barnett could be a cut. It wouldn't shock me. But again, this could be his last year, I think, here. And they want to give him an opportunity, I think, after his ACL injury last year. Who's your linebackers?
I got Reddick, Dean, Smith, Cunningham, Ellis, Morrow, and I ended up putting Van Sumeren. I actually have Van Sumeren and Ricks making the roster. So Mr. Crockpot's probably sitting there like looking at his 53-man roster like, okay, we differentiate here. But I think Van Sumeren, like he showed something last night, like 17 tackles, 11 solo, and some of those coming against like the first team Colts players. I mean, that's kind of impressive to me. Like, and I think that shows something that could be there that Sean Bradley vacates from a linebacker perspective for special teams. You're not going to see Van Sumeren get out on the field as a defensive player very often. It's going to be, Nakobe Dean, Cunningham, Ellis, Reddick, Smith. Like you're going to see, like, you're either going to have the 2 linebackers or you're going to have the 4 linebackers, and 2 of them are going to probably be off-ball linebackers that are rushing the passer rather than dropping back in coverage. So I don't see a way he gets on the field other than special teams. So that's the only reason I have him making it is more to fill the void at special teams.
And I have Hassan Reddick, Nakobe Dean, Zach Cunningham. Dean and Cunningham are going to be the two starting linebackers. Nolan Smith, Nick Morrow, and Christian Ellis. Van Sumeren, I think you could cut him. He won't get picked up by anybody, and he'll be back on the practice squad. But yes, I have 6 at the linebacker position. Cornerbacks, you want to – actually, I'll start us off with corners. Kind of went heavy. I went 7. Darius Slade, James Bradbury, Avonte Maddox. Your starters on the outside and then the nickel. And then Josh Jobe, Kaylee Ringo, Eli Ricks, and Mario Goodrich. I wanted to put Mekhi Gardner because I think he has a chance if he develops well, he can be good. I'm hoping that they can slip him through and bring him back on the practice squad. But Eli Ricks played really well as an undrafted free agent, and he deserves a spot. He'd be really good on special teams. He's the future on the outside. Him and Ringo with Josh Jobe, like that's going to be your future, trio at cornerback. So I'm going to go with those 7: Slay, Bradbury, Maddox, Jobe, Ringo, Ricks, and Goodrich.
I like the prospect of them being the future of the outside because of how cheap they were, but a part of me is still skeptical that both can end up hidden as legitimate outside cornerbacks in the NFL. But I do have the same 7 guys as you. I think Ricks did an incredible job. Ricks had a way better preseason than Ringo did, despite the hype around Keely Ringo through camp and stuff and how they want him to be the future. Good. I had the same thoughts on Mekhi Gardner. I said, for me, it's Van Sumeren or Gardner. That would be my debate at spot 53, solely for the fact that Gardner was so good on special teams. He ended up, and I know you don't love PFF grades, but he was our highest graded special teams player. So he could be really good on special teams. And I would not fault the Eagles if they take Gardner and cut Van Sumeren, or if they go the opposite direction. Whichever direction they go with those 2 guys, I wouldn't be mad. But I think like you said, Mekhi Gardner, there's a chance that he could develop defensively as well. But right now, you'd be solely taking a purely developmental guy, but at least this developmental guy showed something on special teams this preseason that a lot of these other guys did not show. So, I mean, that was one of my tougher bubble decisions.
And when it comes to Ricks, I think that he didn't, again, going into last college football season, he was talked about as a first round draft pick. Then he got into Saban's doghouse, and that didn't help things. And, Ringo played for Kirby Smart. And as Mr. Crockback says, I don't remember the Eagles cornerback room. It's been a long time. You remember when we signed, or when we had Kerry Williams, and the guy from Seattle who was part of the Legion of Boom, but wasn't good. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. But they were struggling at corner until they were able to get Darius Slay, and then they were able to get James Bradbury and draft Avonte Maddox. It's such a strong room for this team, and they have a lot of guys that deserve to be on. Again, we both don't have Mekhi Gardner, and he probably deserves to be on there. Maybe they go with Gardner instead of Goodrich. Who knows? But I really like the young talent that they have behind the starters, and again, like I said, Eli Ricks got in the doghouse with Saban last year, and I think that hurt his draft stock. And the fact that he went undrafted is crazy. And he said that the Eagles were the first team that contacted him, and that's why he signed with the Eagles as an undrafted free agent. And that kind of showed him that they wanted him, and he wanted to come here. And he left it all out on the field in all 3 preseason games. So,
and I mean, maybe we are overhyping some of these guys because some of these guys like Keely Ringo was supposed to go in the first. He ended up dropping down to the 3rd or the 4th round. Eli Ricks was out of high school, was a top guy out of high school. Coming into college, he ended up kind of falling down the ranks to the point that he was an undrafted free agent. Some of these guys that really fell off throughout their college career for one reason or another. But the fact that, at certain points they were thought to be where they were, potential first round picks, really high end kids coming out of high school. Maybe they, like you said, maybe in the right situation, they can really come back and be that type of guy and start to see that come back, especially when you're playing behind guys like Slay, guys like Bradbury. Maybe your game can come back. Maybe when you're learning from the best, you can really become one of the best in 3 or 4 years time when it's your turn. And when they give you the call. And the reason I like Goodrich so much, he did so well in the slot, and we have not been able to find that person behind
Devontae
Avonte
gets hurt,
Maddox.
and he gets hurt a lot.
And Avonte, how many games is he going to miss this year? Who knows? But we can almost predict if there's anyone on the roster who hasn't been able to stay healthy over the last 3 seasons, it's Avonte Maddox. And we can never seem to figure out what to put there to fix the slot cornerback position. And if Goodrich can continue to play even half as good as he did in the preseason at the slot position, he'd be admirable person to step in for Maddox and much better than what we've had. And Zach McPherson got hurt. Like, that would be looking at like a potential 8th corner that would have had to stay, because they drafted Zach McPherson too high, I feel, to give up this season on him. I think he would have had to make the roster.
And they've also been experimenting with James Bradbury in the slot too. And if Bradbury can play in the slot, Job can come to the outside, or Ricks can come. Like, the depth of with having these young guys, you can move players around.
The versatility is going to be wild. Like, they tried him everywhere. Bradbury, they had him at linebacker, safety, slot, outside corner. They've done this with a lot of guys. Like, and this is the intelligence of
Jenkins role.
Yeah, this is the intelligence of Sean Desai at work. Like, you can see that he wants to use these guys in a number of different roles and wants to get them good and wants to get them comfortable. And that may open up that may make it make sense to have 7 or 8 cornerbacks.
And it makes me I can't wait for September 10th, because we didn't see the Sean Desai defense. Now it's probably, there's a talk that it's similar to Gannon's, and obviously he's going to throw his own little, his own flair into it. But not seeing it and just being frustrated by playing that vanilla type defense. Granted, yesterday, I felt like he blitzed a lot. Like, he was throwing corners at it, or bringing double linebackers to Anthony Richardson a lot in that first half. So I can't wait to see what he does when the starters are in there, when he gets all 11 starters out there. All right, let's go to the last position, safety. Who you got?
I got Blankenship, Edmonds, Evans, and Brown. And I got Evans because, like, he's a special teams guy, and maybe we're completely missing, and they're going to give Kevon Wallace another shot. But man, there was nothing this preseason to say Kevon Wallace deserves another shot. But there's a part of me that Howie's going to sit there and he's going to say, I can't let him go. And I don't know why. He didn't show enough on special teams. He hasn't shown enough at the safety position. And Evans, to me, at least, he's a viable, like, he played all over the place. Like, in his time in Tampa Bay, he played a bit in the slot. He played at linebacker. He's got the versatility. Kevon Wallace, you can't really move him around. You've tried to move him around. He's just not that versatile piece, or he's not even good at the main position he's asked for. So when you move him around, he doesn't get any better. He just looks like a lost person out there on defense. So I just can't come to terms with giving Wallace a chance, even though I'm certain Howie can.
So I am not super excited about the safety position. If there's going to be a move that Howie makes, I think it's going to be for safety, like he did with CJ Gardner-Johnson last year. I got Blankenship, Brown, Edmonds, and Wallace. I have Wallace. I actually disagree with you. I think this was his. Now we're going off of, he wasn't very good the last couple of camps. So I think this was his best camp. And I think he's gotten a lot of run. Now, all the safeties have, but even him, he got run with, the first team next to Blankenship. And he has been decent on special teams. And again, decent is probably setting a low bar or whatever. But so I'm going to go with Wallace and Evans. If they wanted to keep 5 and maybe go with one less linebacker, one less defensive tackle, one less offensive lineman, and keep Evans, they could do that. So I went with Blankenship, and again, I'm not thrilled about this safety room at all. Believe me, I am not thrilled. But Blankenship, Brown, Edmonds, and Wallace.
Yeah, and I'm not thrilled. Like, if there's 2 spots I'm looking at as needs, I mean, punter's a need, but I mean, punter to me, whatever. We've seen suppressive games, and we've seen.
I wouldn't say really whatever after games. The Super Bowl.
I know. It's so tough when he did what he did in the Super Bowl. Like, if he had an okay game there, we're not even talking about punter as a need. We're like, okay, we can live with it. But because of what he did in the Super Bowl, where everyone's got this sour taste in their mouth. But I think, like, from an impact standpoint, this safety room is not good. Like, okay, Reed Blankenship, and me and you are not like super high on Reed Blankenship. I don't love the way his tackling technique. He reminds me so much of Marcus Epps again, like last year. And Marcus Epps, whatever, he had a great year. He went off and got paid. Congratulations. I think he got overpaid. But I don't love these guys who have no technique in the way that they tackle, especially when you've watched guys like Dawkins and you've watched guys like Jenkins and stuff man that position in the past and what they're able to do. Like, I love to see like a guy who can lay a boom hit, but I don't like seeing a guy flying around like a heat-seeking missile with no take of angles or anything or technique to their tackle, because that's just calling for missed tackles and big plays when you're working to not let those happen in a pass-friendly NFL.
Well, I mean,
and linebacker, I don't love either, but I mean, linebacker I can live with because you're probably just going to have two guys and then you're going to have rushers a lot of the time.
Watching the game yesterday, like Sidney Brown was all over the field, but he's what you talked about it last year with the safeties, heat-seeking missile. He doesn't look what he hits, and he's going to be somebody that misses a lot of tackles. Like we talked about it a lot last year. You have to be prepared. If he's out there, he's going to miss a bunch of tackles. Mr. Crockbach, Gardner Johnson played 65% of the snaps, and Reed played 25% of the snaps last year. What do you expect from Sidney Brown? I mean, probably
it's going to be a lot fair split, I think, because Reed I think will be on the 65 end, but like it's going to be a lot fair split based on the players there now because no one's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Nobody's even remotely close to that. And despite what he has said, I do respect the player. I do respect how he plays the game. So I cannot discount that despite what he's been saying about the fans and the Eagles as an organization this offseason. But at the end of the day, no one's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Reed's going to get the 65% because he's the number one safety in the room. But the rest, that's going to be a very fair split. But I agree with you. You're going to have Sidney Brown out there missing tackles. You're going to have Reed. I would a million times over want two safeties who are the most boring guys to watch on film because they're making good, smart plays.
I really wish we would have drafted Brian Branch from Alabama. He looks really good. He might start for Detroit. Like, and he can play like slot. He can play he could play multiple positions, versatile. He's very versatile. He would have been a great guy to have in this secondary. Who plays more snaps in 2023, Sidney Brown or Nolan Smith?
Should be Nolan Smith, but that's a deep rushers room to contend with. Like, you may be able to give Smith the time to work his way into it, whereas Sidney Brown, the safety room is not as deep. It's not as good. You may have to throw Sidney Brown out there 35-40% of the time and Nolan Smith 25 or 30% of the time, just based on the rooms you're looking at. But it also, we haven't seen, like you said, the full Desai scheme. Yep. Maybe there's room for Smith to be used a lot more. And maybe, if Bradbury's used in a more versatile role or they start moving guys around, maybe a Sidney Brown gets pumped back and he's only playing 15-20% snaps.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this draft class is going to, like Jalen Carter's, he's getting rave reviews in camp, and he's not going to start week 1, but I think in crunch time, he's going to be out there. He's going to wreak havoc in the middle of the Eagles defensive line. Nolan Smith is when he gets a chance, again, another guy with getting rave reviews. Sidney Brown's probably going to get a lot of playing time. Kaylee Ringo, I think, if he's able to just sit back and learn from, Slay and Bradbury, I think that's going to do him wonders. Because, again, if he has to play a lot, that means Slay and Bradbury, one of them's hurt. And that could be an issue. But, yeah, I'm very excited about and Tyler Steen, like, the thought when they drafted him is he's going to compete for the right guard spot, but now he has taken left tackle snaps, he's taken right guard snaps, so he's another versatile piece. So I really, really, really like this rookie class that the Eagles have, and if Howie can continue to stack these draft classes on top of each other, the money that you're paying Jalen, it won't affect too much because you're hitting on the draft picks. Now, in a year or two, they're going to have to pay Devontae Smith a lot of money because he's going to be legit. He's going to be, if not this year, definitely next year. He's going to be top 5 receiver, top 5, he's already top 10, I think. But he's
this is another all the more reason to say Jonathan Taylor doesn't make sense. That's eating into money for a guy like Devontae Smith, eating into money for a guy like Jordan Davis, eating into money for guys that you're going to need to Cam Jurgens, for guys that you're probably down the road going to have to pony up for. And I'd rather pony up at those positions than the running back position. I mean, what if he's strictly you want to throw it in there for a rental 1 year and they take a 3 and a 5 or whatever? okay. Hopefully it helps us win the Super Bowl, but I don't even really want to give that up at the end of the day. I'd really just rather, I like the running back room here, but I think we've one of the better running back rooms in the league with Gainwell, Penny, and Swift. Don't even need to mention Scott or Sermon or whoever makes the final cut as a fourth or even a fifth running back. I don't think we need to talk about them because they're only going to see the field. I mean, look at Scott last year. I think I looked it up. Scott had less than 75 touches. It's the same role that someone's going to take as a fourth running back again, because you basically have a fourth running back in Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position. So to me, it makes no sense to bring Taylor in here. You've got such a good offense. You've got a good flow. You're passing the ball a fair amount. And Jonathan Taylor just kind of makes you have to put the ball on the ground more and run the football, which is not something we would mind, because we've seen that work extremely well for this offense as well. I just think they have a good thing going, and Jonathan Taylor probably shifts the strategy in a different direction. That's not to knock the talent. The talent's incredible. It's to knock the amount you have to pay a position that, no offense to the running backs, it doesn't matter. You don't have to pay the position. Let's face it. We're seeing it how he's got one of the cheapest in all of the NFL, and it may probably be one of the best in all of the NFL.
All the four making less than what Miles Sanders got paid. So it is what it is. Now, what our 53-man roster looks like now, and what the Eagles' 53-man roster looks like Tuesday at 4 o'clock, come week 1, September 10th at 4:25 p.m. in Foxborough, it's not going to look like that. There's going to be different. There's going to be moves. There's going to be maybe a trade or two, definitely some signings. But I can't wait for Tuesday, afternoon, just to see what the initial roster looks like, see how, close we were to what happened. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, and we're 16 days away from Eagles Patriots. Week 1 of the regular season, finally, at least the Eagles preseason is over. Preseason, as much as we love football and as much as we're hyped when preseason gets here, those games are really bad. They drag on.
I get so excited, and then I watch like week 1, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I got to watch 2 more weeks of this.
Yeah, so
I just can't. But I agree with you. And I'm also excited to see like what comes back for the practice squad and what other teams thought of the people we didn't take, who doesn't make it through waivers and is not a member of the team.
Like I said, over 1,150 players are going to be cut at the same time. And these scouting departments are across not just the Eagles, but all 32 teams that have to be doing their due diligence right now, being like, if this person gets cut when we want them, we need to make a call right away to get them either onto our active roster or try to bring them to the practice squad. And typically, when it comes to the practice squad, the majority of the 16 that you bring back have already been on, because they know you. Like, you kind of have a handshake deal. Like, look, we're going to cut you, but we want you to be back. We want you to develop here. And if they're willing to accept that, they won't take a call or they won't accept another team's offer. But we'll see what happens. And I just can't wait, man. And next time we're broadcasting, we're gonna do our predictions in terms of conference or division winners, maybe some of the awards: MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Years, our Super Bowl. And I said last year, we both picked Green Bay, and that didn't go over too well. So we'll see what happens.
I can tell you right now, I will not be picking the Jets. I will not buy into this Aaron Rodgers fiasco.
Jets are not making the playoffs. That's my big.
It's the bombshell prediction right there.
Jets will not make the playoffs. I'll give you that early one right now. They're going to finish third in the division, probably.
Like that AFC is like, I'm almost happy we're in the NFC.
Oh, the NFC is trash.
It is. It definitely is. Like, I want your thoughts quick. Like, do you think Trey Lance gets moved? Like, his current value is what somebody reported that the current value, based on some people he spoke to, is an early day 3 pick. Like, man, imagine if you're the 49ers. Like, the fact that your team's this good makes it hurt a little bit less. But imagine what those 3 firsts could have been, and instead you've traded them.
Remember, there was talk before the draft that Shanahan wanted to take Mac Jones. Do you think like he wanted to take Mac Jones, but John Lynch and like the ownership wanted to take Trey Lance and kind of forced Trey Lance on him?
It's wholly possible. Like overly involved ownership groups ruin teams. We see it with Dallas. We see it with San Francisco. We see it all over the NFL. There's at least 5 or 6 teams who have too involved of ownership groups in the day-to-day, like roster moves and things that you should trust your management to do. Jeffrey Lurie is very hands-on when it comes to hiring his coach. We now know he has a type. And Howie and him have a type, or he has a type that Howie just says, yes, sir, I'm hiring this guy for you. But at the end of the day, Jeffrey is fairly hands-off to let Howie do his job. And maybe that speaks to how Howie operates and how Howie does his job and how he's one of the best, executives in the league right now. But it also could speak to how much it pays to have an owner just own the team and watch from the sidelines. Yeah. Be quiet and be a good owner.
Yep, just write the check.
Look at Elon Musk. Ask him about Twitter. He bought it for $44 billion, and it's worth $15 billion right now. Less involved and a quiet owner is sometimes a better thing.
Worst thing that ever happened to Twitter. But yeah, no, I do think Trey Lance gets traded. Now, if you're the Eagles, do you make a call on Trey Lance? And then I don't know. Does that mean you get rid of I don't think you would get rid of Tanner McKee. Does that mean you get rid of Marcus Mariota? Or do you just leave the quarterback room as it is and hope that Jalen doesn't get hurt?
I'd leave the quarterback room as it is. I mean, I don't think McKee is the future of this room in any way, shape, or form like some people may think. I think he's just a perennial backup, which is fine. You can also have a good perennial backup. The only reason he's not the true backup is because we got Mariota. He's a smart player. His preseason doesn't speak to how Marcus Mariota likely is in the locker room and on the field and in your ear as a guy.
Falcons.
Well, maybe don't ask them. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I think, I think that Mariota is like McKee is at best a perennial backup, and that's fine with me. I say leave Trey Lance, leave that. There's going to be a team who has the need a lot more that may want to go after, but it'll be interesting to see. Like, I feel like Lance has to be moved by Tuesday. Like, I can't imagine they want to carry 3 quarterbacks and the third one being Lance, who you sit week in and week out. But
yeah, I can't, like, Sam Darnold that's just.
Sam Darnold get in the backup.
Trey Lance has played, I think, like 21 games in his life. Like that, he doesn't. Again, his last year at North Dakota State, he played 1 game. It was during COVID, but like they had a game against a D1, a FBS team, I guess, whatever. But like that's all he played. Like he just didn't have the tape. And again, I saw somebody tweet something that if you look at that 2020 draft class, which is the COVID draft class, you know how much stock these scouting departments take into interviewing guys and being able to meet personally with guys. They weren't able to do that. That was the year Eagles drafted Reagor. Like, if you think about it, if you look at that draft class, there's a lot of players that like either got cut, got traded, just did in the first round. That just didn't make it.
Trey Lance traded to the Cowboys. Oh boy!
Now wait, is that his prediction or is that didn't happen, right?
I don't see that it has happened, so I'm guessing that's his prediction. So
whatever. Dallas sucks anyway. They'll make the playoffs and then not make it past the second round as usual.
Oh wait. Yep, no, he is. The 49ers are sending Trey Lance to the Dallas Cowboys for a mid-round pick.
Holy crap!
Lance now gets a fresh start in Dallas.
Wow.
As we trash him, he goes, they're a team that we love to trash, so it just fits. The mold just fits.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. So they got rid of him.
What a way to wrap up, huh? What a way to wrap up. We bash the guy right into a trade. They're the worst franchise in the NFL.
Are they the worst franchise? They're one of the worst? I don't know if they're the
maybe
worst.
It's just, maybe we're biased. Maybe that's all it is.
Okay. All right. So before we get out of here, what's one surprise move that you think happens by Tuesday at 4:00? I know we went over the rosters. We talked about potential trades, potential moves, but what do you think is one shock move that we're going to be when we get together again next week? We're like, wow, I did not see that coming.
I don't have a specific move, but I think Howie makes a trade. I think Howie's going to make a trade between now and Tuesday at 4 p.m. that shakes up the look of these 53-man roster predictions in a big way. I don't know the move. I don't know the position. I hope it's a safety, but I feel like Howie's going to make a move. He knows the value he's got on some of these guys, and it may be a guy that we may not want to see go, but it's going to be what's best because of the plethora of talent. There's no way I see Howie making a move by Tuesday at 4. At least one trade.
Dallas traded a 4th round pick for Lance.
Right in line with the value. They said an early day 3 pick.
I would love to trade for Buda Baker, but he restructured his contract.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. This Luffy, we'll call you Luffy. We were talking about it earlier. The fact he restructured his deal to put more guaranteed money on the Cardinals books means, like, I don't think Buda Baker goes this year, despite the rebuild. I think at the end of the day, if they really were going full rebuild mode, they probably shouldn't have restructured Buda Baker and dealt him, because I think he's one of their more valuable players. And now the way the deal is structured, it's just not friendly for Arizona to trade him, personally. But
I mean, right now they're looking at the number 1 and number 2 overall picks next year. They could have Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. Like Kyler Murray gone. So
there's talk of him not playing at all this year. It's crazy.
I saw
crazy.
That. All right. Well, remember Tuesday. What's that date? Tuesday the 29th at 4 p.m. Every team in the National Football League has to be down to 53 men, and then they can start building their 16-man practice squads. We did go over ours, just went over ours. We thank everybody in the chat for participating. We love when you guys participate. Give us something that we like to just converse back and forth. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10, and follow me on Twitter at LJ Harrell 54, and follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Edge of Philly Sports. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.
Can't believe that trade.